Okay. Father Mike has an office down the hall, very close to Christine and Gary and Bishop Brian. They all kind of share the same space a lot. And I've noticed that Father Mike eats a lot of bananas. And if he's like most men, he probably eats the banana, throws the peel in the nearest wastebasket, right? Yeah, if it makes it to the wastebasket.
Yeah.
Okay, now if he eats a banana after Mass today, the trash isn't emptied in this building till Wednesday night. Can you imagine that banana peel? Because they get rancid real fast, right? Okay. Lasting in that office till Wednesday night, poor Gary, poor Christine, right? So if he carelessly threw his banana peel in the wastebasket, what would Christine and Gary have to do to confront this horrible behavior? Would they say, Father Mike, do you have any idea how bad that smells after even 12 hours? And Drosophila melanogaster, remember fruit flies? They come and they're all over the office, and it stinks to high heaven. Could you throw the damn thing out? That's how. Quoting Gary.
At home, I don't need to come here.
Now, if I confronted him that way, of course he'd get the message that I'm unhappy about what he does with the banana peels, right?
Yeah.
But I might also make him angry and defensive and think sometimes I throw him outside. No, but if I simply approached and I said, Father Mike, gosh, I've noticed you really look young for your age. And you're thin and fit, and I just kind of admire and appreciate that. And wish I was thin like that, looked younger and all that. I notice one of the ways you must do that is you don't eat cheeseburgers for lunch. You always have fruits and bananas. And I always see you eat bananas. And actually, when I see you do that, I get a little jealous that you have the discipline to eat fruit instead of cheeseburgers for lunch, and that kind of, I actually admire and respect that. And good for you, because it makes you kind of a role model for the rest of us who eat poorly and don't do it right. So, just one thing though about banana peels. If they're left to their own devices, I'm sure you know this, they start smelling bad pretty fast, and they attract fruit flies, and they just never go away, and the smell is bad, and sometimes people come to the office and they sniff their noses a little bit. So I'm wondering if I bought a box of gallon-size baggies, airtight. I put them in the closet in the office there. I was wondering if you'd be willing to either put your banana peels in the bag and seal it before you put it in the trash, or take it outside here to do it, just so that we're all just a little happier in the office. Would that be okay?
That'd be fine.
Oh, thank you.
Don't slip.
Now, of course, I made all that up. Because what do you do with your banana peels?
I get them out of the office right away.
Okay, so I made that up, and he's over here.
Yeah.
But see, if I did need to confront him, you saw the difference between the two ways. See, I can communicate the same message without putting him down or making him defensive or angry. When I put it in a way that, can we solve this problem together, even though it involves you changing, not me, then it just makes it easier for people to be good. And that's one of the principles of the church is make it easy for people to do the right thing, make it easy for people to do the correct thing. Because otherwise, sometimes we do have to confront bad behavior and all that, and appropriately so. It's clear in all the scripture readings today that we need to do that. It's often enough how we do it, right? That TV show is horrible, is how they do it sometimes is so unnecessary and cruel. How can we confront other people and still keep in mind what the gospel says? Well, we have to do it by not taking it literally. Here's another name for you. Pastor Phelps, Westboro Baptist Church. Disgusting. He's the guy who leads those church people protesting at the funerals of soldiers killed in Afghanistan. He's doing that because he's taking these passages literally, and he thinks he's actually doing God's good work by putting these poor families of these soldiers who were killed in action, doing their duty, serving their country, and yet he thinks he's doing God's good work by somehow connecting that with the acceptance of homosexuality or whatever silly reasoning he has for that. And that's because he's not looking at the whole picture here. And I have to do that with Time Warner Cable. We all have to do that. Because this last week I had I finally broke down and said, okay, I'm going to pay for internet at home. I ordered internet through Time Warner Cable. They made an appointment to come. I took time off to stay at home and wait for them, and they never showed up. And I called them and I said, we had an appointment, and they said, yep, sure did. It was canceled. I said, had you considered informing me about such things? I can understand that maybe they overbooked and they needed to cancel. No, we don't have policy where we inform the customer. Wrong thing to say. That's when I started taking these words literally. Gathered witnesses. I've done everything I could to make their life miserable. But see, if I get too obsessed with that, then I'm only going to hurt myself, right? We have studies that show that people that hang on to resentments and anger have much higher rates of heart disease and stomach ulcers and all kinds of health problems. Studies have shown that if you're a good forgiver, a good let-goer of things like that, you're going to be healthier. And so what I want to do in my life when I have anger and resentment is, yes, when I need to confront other people about their behavior or what they do, but I have to make sure I do it appropriately. Because notice in the gospel, Jesus says, after you talk to them individually, after you gather your evidence, after you can bring it to the church, if they still won't listen, then treat them as you would a tax collector or a Gentile, which is how do you treat tax collectors and Gentiles? Huh?
You don't want to talk to them.
You don't want to talk to them. The Jews at the time would not have wanted to talk to tax collectors and Gentiles, right? But what did Jesus do? He ate dinner with them. He recruited them into his apostles. He preached about bringing the Gentiles and tax collectors into the loving arms of God and the community of the church that he was getting ready to form. The actions of Jesus, the words of Jesus, say far more than just the words of the gospel. And truly, we can't do what Pastor Phelps of Westboro Baptist Church is doing by simply resting on this condemnation part, but we have to look at the whole picture, all the words of Jesus, and realize that he was talking about the bare minimum. What he really wants us to do is to do what he did, which is to seek reconciliation, to use love as a basis, because that's where that pesky second reading comes in today. It reminds us that the basis of how we resolve all these things and confront sin is not with anger, but with love. Now we're getting to the hard part. This week, of course, the 10th anniversary of 9/11, something that, gosh, seems like only yesterday. And with all the TV shows and the specials, we're all going to be brought back to those horrible memories. But one thing that I'd like you to focus on, if you're think about these scriptures this week, in all the 9/11 reporting and events, think especially of Todd Beamer. Remember him? Flight 93?
Let's roll.
Let's roll. Todd Beamer was on that flight that crashed in Pennsylvania that they thought was aimed for the White House or perhaps Congress, that the passengers courageously stopped. And the leader of that appears to have been a young man named Todd Beamer. He's famous for those words, "Let's roll," but he should be equally famous for two other words that he said, "Our" and "Father." Before Todd Beamer led the rest of the passengers down the aisle to stop the horrible evil that was befalling them, he called a customer service representative on one of those airline phones, not only to communicate what was going on, but he said, "I need you to pray with me." And the prayer that he chose and asked the customer service rep on the other end to pray was the Our Father. And later on, his widow, Lisa Beamer, was being interviewed, and she was commenting on why he picked that particular prayer. And she said, because Todd was the kind of guy who, even when he wanted to confront evil, would take quite seriously the words of the Lord Prayer about forgiveness. And that even before he raced down that aisle, he wanted to at least make some attempt to forgive the horrible murdering thugs that were trying to crash that plane. So even in the midst of confronting evil, he knew the ultimate job he had to do was to forgive those who actually did kill him. Now, that kind of challenge of forgiveness and of healing and of confronting the right way, hopefully none of us will ever be in a situation that dramatic or serious. But certainly the words of Jesus challenge us to confront with love, to confront with care, and to always confront with the thought of forgiveness. That's the faith that we share. That's the faith we now stand and proclaim.